Welcome to the internet, my friend. How can I help you?
We're online.
All systems go.
And in your face. You are listening to the golden microphones of the IMC radio. News, opinions, and your calls.
You gotta see that big picture.
Sometimes if you stop the machine, then you realize, whoa, you have to have some foresight to think about what kind of an effect is that going to have on air travel.
How important is aviation to you?
How important is aviation to you? Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is February 2nd, 2016, and back behind the golden microphones of the IMC Club, I'm Howie Marlin, and I'm with you from freezing cold, crystal clear, and calm winds today, Martha's Vineyard, KMVY. And this evening, I'm joined with the venerable John Roberts. How you doing, John?
Good, great. Down here at Delray Beach, Florida, the winds are kind of calm and it's warm, and I'm sorry to say, loving it.
and with the venerable Radek Vizigowski, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine from sunny, actually. It was sunny and warm. It was warm today. Upstate New York, Albany, New York. I'm Radek Vizigowski.
We've had some interesting weather. So we had fog the other day. It got up to 60 here on the island. Talk about weird and unusual. We have a lot to talk about today, and probably the subject of the day, obviously, the progress of the merger of the IMC Club with EAA. And Radek, why don't you just take it from here and tell us what the news is, what's going on?
There is so much that I don't think would cover every topic here. I mean, it's been
all right. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Okay, see you later.
All right, hey, ladies. Next time on IMC Radio. No, go ahead, Brad.
It's been tremendous success. What we have so far, without any advertising, we have over 20 requests from existing EAA chapters to add on IMC Club programming.
Really?
So I can only imagine what's going to happen when we start pushing it and actually advertising to all 1,000 EAA chapters there. So, and also we are moving our website to the EAA website, and as a part of the move, we have created a long-awaited, and by popular demand, I had those requests for months, if not years. We have our own IMC Club discussion forum. And to make it even more interesting, every 2 weeks, we're going to post a question to everybody. And this way, you can go there and kind of continue your IMC Club meeting discussions. So, a little electronic route that we are taking here, that you will be able to go there, and if you're not able to attend any IMC Club meetings, because let's say there is no IMC Club nearby, you'll be able to go to our discussion forum and have a good discussion there.
Yeah, and also, you think about it, a lot of the clubs and the meetings could also use this question as an opening question in their meetings, just to warm things up, and take the question even off since it's on the internet, of course, but it could also go right into the classroom. This question you have today is great. So you can also take it to the classroom.
That's a great idea, John.
Wow, John, you're impressing me.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it might be a great way to start.
I thought you were a musician.
Well, I am part-time, and I just don't know what part.
So you impress people part-time.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That would make him a part-time impressionist.
And and that could also get people thinking. Like, have you seen the question? There's 2 questions a month. I think Rock said every 2 weeks you're putting that up there, and you can discuss it. Take it right to the. It's a good break the ice.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys I belong to a couple of a really good website called Cherokee Chat, and it's amazing how vibrant it is. And the cool thing is that it's an instigation for conversation and bringing up dialogue about things that you can maybe be a little intimidated to ask in a public session, but in a forum,
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, so that's very cool. I really look forward to this, Radek. Good idea.
And I want to make a full disclosure that, I'm trying to, I actually started very soft, but I'm going to be trying to be as controversial as possible, just to be able, to start good discussions. So a little appeal to our listeners who are going to be on the discussion forum. Don't crucify me. Because you may disagree with some things that I will be saying there, but some of them, on occasion, I may disagree with myself.
But isn't that what IMC clubs, the education is? That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
That's the crux of it,
Well, listen, I'm going to be the first one to tell you. As you develop a concept and you're talking about a particular instance, situations change. Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, in my line of work, when it comes to diagnosis, the more that somebody presents issues, the picture of the condition will change. So at the onset, in the beginning of the discussion, I may make the statement that I do believe that, this is what we're looking at. But then as you discuss what's going on more and you get more information, the scope of your understanding changes. So Radek, you're entirely justified, and I would hope that people would understand as you talk about those issues. Yeah, you can change your opinion. Absolutely, you have different situations, conditions, and when we're talking about different scenarios, the situations will change, and that's where, the topic of tonight: go, no-go decisions. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, you may have a certain outlook, but then, a few days later, with another set of situations, you may change your mind. It may be, a little more conservative or not.
Yep.
But yeah,
so
good idea.
Let's start with our first question that was posted literally 2 hours ago.
Oh, about the sim.
Yeah, and received 31 views and one very interesting reply. Of course, we're not going to bring up any names there. We're just going to discuss what we think about this. So the question.
Oh, you didn't like the links to the hardcore sites?
Yeah, actually, no, those were fine. But
so that's amazing. Okay, you put it up an hour and you already had 30 responses. So tell me what's going on.
What's the question?
The question is: would you use sim for your training or proficiency if you knew that none of your time in it was loggable? Period. So let's say FAA said, okay, we're not going to allow any sim time to be logged.
Who are you asking, John or me?
Okay, let's go with John first.
Okay, absolutely. I would still use a sim. Isn't it really about learning something every time you fly, whether it's actual or sim? Absolutely. I mean, you can sit in the back seat and learn something. You can't log that. And a sim's a great way to try stuff you'd never try, period. The only people I think that might argue with me might be the ones that are just trying to build hours, maybe. But I'd like to think that people that are trying to build hours because they have aspirations to get into charter or the airlines, I would think that they would appreciate the value of a sim. And Rack, you said one of your first replies, and someone said absolutely not.
Yes, and that was actually a very interesting reply. But what do you think, Howie?
Well, to quote a very respected friend of mine, Jeb Burns, said, "It depends." It depends. And what I was thinking was, well, first I thought no, but then I reflected almost immediately on the time I've spent in a Redbird and how much fun it is. And then the second thought was, well, no, wait, I'm going to put myself into hairy positions where I would never do it in an aircraft. And I would do that for I would absolutely do that to get familiar, to get oriented, to be able to get the scope of my understanding of a situation where there's virtually no risk, very little cash. Why not? Why spend your time and money in a perilous situation when, of course, when you're in an aircraft, and we all know this, you're playing with systems. You're always learning a little bit more about the radio, a little bit more about this or that and the other thing, and the iPad, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Whereas if you're in a Redbird, you can really focus on the condition.
You're spending money there. So now, let's say you go and you have to have minimum of 35 hours, and you have an option of flying in the airplane or flying in a sim for 20 hours, but none of it is loggable, so you still have to put 20 hours in an airplane in addition to it.
So now the sim becomes spend. Yeah. But you're also not going to pull out the right engine 50 feet off the ground on a takeoff in a real plane. I mean, that's invaluable, I would think, you know?
That actually reminds me when I was flying out of North Vegas Airport a little bit there.
Oh, here comes the bragging rights. Yeah, go ahead. McCarran?
No. McCarran was open to general aviation when I was there only between 4 o'clock. No, it was 1 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the morning. That's just a little window. And we were flying. We're flying, but I was doing some work on a multi-engine. It was in Seminole, and right off the ground, I forgot to retract gear. I was with another flight instructor, and right away, that flight instructor pulled the engine on me.
Ooh.
I mean, really? we're maybe 200 feet off the ground. And
how much runway did you have?
What do? I do, full, clean, and blue. So everything forward, clean, retract gear. And he said, okay, that's all I needed. Now you have your engine back.
Wait a minute. Did you just tell me that he cut your engine and wanted your gear up?
Correct, yeah. Because that's a current procedure. I mean, when you lose one of the engines, the formula that I learned and I did teach all my students is full, clean, and blue. And even though I haven't flown multi-engine for a while now, but you can wake me up 1 o'clock in the morning and ask me and say, okay, your engine is out, and I will say full, clean, and blue, which means everything forward. So all the power you can get, clean, flaps, gear, so nothing is hanging, so you have minimum drag.
Right.
And blue is a blue line on your airspeed indicator.
Right. Keep it in the blue. Yep.
So that's the best rate of climb for a single engine.
Yep.
Interesting.
Cool.
The gear up, I never would have thought of that.
Yes, of course, it makes total sense.
But your instinct might be if I can just pull the other engine back and just put it back on the ground.
Well, and that's why I asked, and this is a great scenario to talk. At what size runway do you have? Is it 5,000 feet? Is it 15,000 feet?
Yeah. The whole state of Nevada is a runway.
I was going to say, if you made it out of town, you got all the Salt Lakes.
Going back to simulators, when I was learning to fly, I had no access to any simulators. Period.
That's before Microsoft?
Microsoft actually was out there, but there was nothing that was loggable, and I wasn't really interested in Microsoft.
Yeah, I wonder where the industry got to be, where they must have gone to the FAA and said, we have
actually, wait a second. When I was getting my private, there was no Sims period. I think Microsoft was talking about something, but they didn't have anything DOS based, right? Yes, Howie?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about DOS, the operating system.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. Jesus.
They
Back
did?
then.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that I don't remember playing with anything back in those days. I wasn't even near interested in flying back in. So I don't know. Maybe one of our listeners will be able to chime in. Matter of fact, that'd be really good if any of you guys out there could send us a note of if you did use something back in the DOS days. What was it? Now, of course, you couldn't log it, but I'd be curious to know. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Excuse me, guys. I was wondering. I wonder what the first FAA approved loggable simulator was. That somebody must have gone to the FAA and said, "Look, we have a pretty realistic equipment here. Would you consider that it's good enough that you can actually log some time in it?"
Radek, do you know the etiology of that?
Industry break. That must have been a big thing for sims.
If I would do some research, even going back in my logbook, I probably would give you the answer. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I never really pay attention to that part.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
I was just saying, but it must have been a big thing in the industry for the FAA to allow that into their training as loggable. They must have felt it was beneficial enough that wait a minute, we want to encourage people to build these simulators.
I remember sometime around 2003 there was this company called Elite, and they were first coming up with basic training devices that were approved by FAA. But I don't know if there was anything prior to it or not.
Right. And Radek, we haven't asked you. Would you use a sim for your training if none of your time was loggable?
It's a good question. Because I can tell you what I do for my students, how I look at it. When you come to me for your instrument training, I'm not going to look at any minimums, period. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make you a good pilot. We're going to use combination of sim and real airplane. But I promise you that knowing how much time it takes for somebody to learn all that and be proficient, that all those minimums are going to be satisfied. But I'm not even looking at it because I don't really care. If, let's say, there is 10 hours loggable, and those regulations, they do change. I believe at the moment is 10 hours now. And let's say we need to spend 12 hours in a sim, but those 2 additional hours, they're not going to be loggable. You still have to pay for them. They are going to save you some time in the airplane. Because if, let's say you take the previous one when it was 2035, so 20 hours of sim and 35 hours total. Nobody does their instrument rating exactly within 35-hour minimum.
Right.
So now if you have to, let's say, fly 20 hours in a sim and 25 hours in the airplane, on the other hand, you could fly 22 hours in a sim when 2 is not loggable, but that is going to save you 5 additional hours in the airplane. Isn't that a saving?
Oh yeah. That's hard to actually calculate cost effectiveness, but I get your point absolutely. I mean, isn't one of the things that I know I've heard you use a lot, that you use a Redbird to prep for procedures and then when you go on the plane, then you can really execute them without burning all those hours.
Exactly.
We got to start all over again. We got to take off again. We got to land again. Oh, but that'd be an interesting. I wonder if there's a mathematical formula for that one, Radek.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody could come up with it, but bottom line is I don't look at it. I look at it as a learning tool or teaching tool in this case,
right.
Not how much time we have to spend in it. And I think it's absolutely wrong approach. On the other hand, I mean myself, it's really hard to say because going back in time, I'm not sure. because probably I wouldn't know enough. I would probably be looking at my wallet, and
Yeah, right.
yes, probably I would be looking and making calculations. So it would be rather up to my flight instructor saying, okay, no, forget this. It's going to take about $15,000, and I'm going to make you an instrument pilot. And then I would rely on my flight instructor to do the right thing, to put appropriate time in a sim and in the airplane to make it most efficient. But I don't think that decision should be left up to the student.
I agree with you. I think this would be the instructor's call.
Yeah. Yeah.
I rendered you speechless. Okay.
Well,
yeah, no,
I'm going to tell you this. This would be a great poll to take when we're at Sun and Fun, and to get people there on the Redbirds. And,
did you say Paul, like myself?
Or Swedes. Well, just whoever happens to come by, a few Austrians, and see what they feel after they got out of the Redbird. Now, it depends on the simulators too, because most of the simulators that are around the country, listen, they're all the PC based, and but when you get behind something like a Redbird, holy cow, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's but also depends what you're doing in a sim, because somebody else could argue, you could have a lot of fun in a Redbird, in the full motion FMX, but then should your fun be loggable?
Well, seeing that you in training, you get a certain number of hours which are loggable, right?
Yeah.
And then the question is, for proficiency, it should be loggable as well, right? But it's not.
With some limitations.
Mm-hmm.
With some limitations, but again, here I would argue, if if it's going to save my life, should I really care if I'm going to have it in my logbook or not?
Yeah, right.
Right. Well, I mean, to me, the ace in the hole for a simulator, to me, other than practicing procedures, using it on days when you absolutely can't fly, is you can try stuff that you would never try. I'll bet you the military must have went crazy when the simulators got to be realistic. I mean, you know what it costs to fly like an SR-71? I mean, how do you train somebody or you're in a fighter or something, or you know what I mean? But the idea that you can do just crazy stuff that you just can't even try in an airplane. I mean, to me, that's the real ace in the hole of a simulator. You can actually try
right.
that.
Of course, right.
Crazy system failures that might never happen, but if it did, you wouldn't freak out. You'd say, "Oh yeah, I did that once."
Well, that's the whole point. That's what I said to begin with.
So maybe I should adjust that question online and say, would you want to fly full motion 747 sim, knowing that it's not going to be loggable?
I think the question you have there is pretty good. It opens
Wait a minute. There's a fellow that travels around with one of them. I didn't get a chance to do it at AirVenture last year, but he's got, I don't know if it's a 737. It's the whole setup. And he travels around, and that's exactly what people do. And you don't log it.
So my point would be, it's. I would love to be in one of those sims, and I would care less if it's loggable or not.
Yeah.
For the experience. So why don't we take this step down, and do it just for the experience? And who cares if it's loggable?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's why I said this fella makes a good money. Traveling around with this simulator, and it's the real cockpit. So can you imagine? That's pretty damn cool.
Or what if you put the simulator in like a giant transport plane and flew around while you were in the simulator in the back of the plane? No, that makes no sense. Yeah, so when you push a stick forward, the pilot goes forward. So you get talk about full motion.
Yeah, that's a good one. God.
John, that's why you're here. Thank you very much.
Here. But Radek, would you say as an instructor, absolutely hands down, the use of simulators the past 10 years plus has made a very positive impact on GA flight training?
Not as positive as I think it should, because unfortunately it went, most flight schools and flight instructors, it went that economy route. So basically dollar signs. How we can use sim so you are going to save as much money as possible, rather than how we are going to use the sim to teach you as much as we can.
I happen to know, I experienced, and Radek, you know what I'm talking about. I know there were times when students would come in for their flights, and they're private, so it's VMC, and no, we can't fly today, but let's get in the sim. And it's like, oh, I was planning on doing my, we're going to work on stalls today, or we'll work on something, and a student comes to school, and now,
but they can't log it.
Right. Yeah. So we'll go to the sim, and the student's kind of like, oh, it's kind of a disappointment, of course, but like you say, right, maybe, but the instructor, gets to have some time with the student, and they can work on valuable stuff.
Absolutely, there's a lot they can learn, but here we're encountering another problem, that flight instructor now, it's not loggable at all for a flight instructor. So now that flight instructor says, let's do some ground,
right,
or do something else, because they don't really want to be in that sim with their student, because they don't get anything out of it, and they are in the business of building their time.
Yeah, you touched on something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, but I was wondering, Rack, when it used to be that you had to go to ground school, and then you had your flight teacher. When did they start to integrate that? It used to be, you had ground classroom, was separate from you. That was your. Now it seems like your flight instructor is also your ground teacher, correct?
That part actually, yes and no. It all depends on flight school.
Oh, okay.
And with 141 flight schools and requirement of having ground instruction under 141, depending on the school structure, that is when it started happening. Because with part 61, you had flight instructor who was teaching, and then people would organize kind of a study group, and then
right.
There was somebody coming in, and that was ground school, but that wasn't really
Right. No, I know we're off the track today, but I just realized that it's really changed, and one last thing, when did simulators really kick in, guys? What would you say, 10 years ago? They got serious and you could start to log it?
I would say about 13 years ago.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Interesting. So the three of us are in agreement that we would still use a sim if none of our time was loggable. And Radek, I didn't know that instructor time is not loggable. If you're sitting, because an instrument student in a simulator needs a double I to log it, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, but it's
but the double I doesn't get to log anything.
Correct. And again, like Howie just said, it depends. Unless you're dealing with a full motion cabin replica,
right?
Then it is loggable for a flight instructor.
I see. Well, it's a big subject. You could have a whole IMC club on just this one question, Radek.
Very good.
You really could.
Absolutely right, and I think it's kind of a really good idea. I really look forward to talking to you more about this as we get closer to Sun and Fun, and see if we can do little tests. Guys, this is a pretty good time for a segue. I'm just going to make a little announcement here, if you guys don't mind. We'll take a little break and come back to Phase 2.
All right.
You open for
Sounds
that?
good.
Okay.
Welcome to Plain Talk on WIMC Radio. The views and opinions expressed on Plain Talk are of the host, its guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect the views of the IMC Club or IMC Club International.
Runway National Departure Quebec, 0954. Runway 25 right for departure. Taxiway Echo 5
Dude, this takes so much energy, guys. All right. JetBlue 1012, Lieutenant November, join Alpha, contact Ronald. We're not a good afternoon. Clear to land, my 33 left 4, good evening. You guys should come up here one day. You'd enjoy it. You'd enjoy the show.
They'd enjoy
Clear to
it.
land, 33 right.
About enough of that. Okay, we're back, folks. Good afternoon on February 2nd, and we're back here with Radek Vizikowski and John Roberts. So, what's on the agenda for Phase 2, boys?
Okay, go, no go.
Go, no, go.
The biggest decision you can make.
And made just a couple of days ago. I'll take the lead on this. Interesting that I was with a friend who's got a nice husky, and we were talking about the...
Oh, they're beautiful dogs.
Yeah, well, and we threw the dog in the plane, and the husky was in the husky, and, we just had a great time. The barking was a little tough, but... they always have the head out the window, and it's middle of winter. But what was interesting is we were talking about here on MVY, we don't have any grass strips, and there's this ongoing discussion. And we're looking to, we're working on the master plan for some radical changes, and we're looking at the opportunity. So the discussion of tail draggers on asphalt, not if you're a tenured pilot and you've got all the skills, but if you're relatively new, we all know, for those of us that have worked on tail, that the friction of the grass really helps a lot, a tremendous amount, especially when you get squirrely as you're learning to dance on the pedals. Whereas as you get on the asphalt, you're going to make your changes, but the rubber's going to slide on the asphalt, and pretty soon you got a wing over going. And we don't have any Ryans around here where you can change wings when you do a wing over, so that was the discussion, and we're looking at this really gnarly crosswind. In my Cherokee, we got the max crosswind component of 15 knots, and although that's the stated, we all know that we can push it a little bit. Add to the fact that we got a pretty wide runway here. It's 75 feet across, so you can add another 10 or 20 degrees to your ascension, and you're kind of cutting into the wind a little bit. Anyway, the bottom line was, I said, hell no. I just, why? Why risk it? I just, and I'm the guy that goes up when it's bouncy. I love it when it's bouncy.
Okay, but was your decision based on analysis of various factors at a given moment, or you can say that I have some solid criteria in which I'm not going? So if wind is 20 knots across the runway, I'm not going, period. Or if wind is over 35 knots, regardless what direction, I'm not going. Do you have any criteria of that sort?
Well, I absolutely. When I'm looking at 15, I want to know, is it straight? Is it what are the gusts? I mean, if it's just straight 15 and you can smoothly come in and make the adjustments, that's one thing. But
again, it's forecast. I mean, it could say it's right down the runway.
Well, I said hell no, because it was.
So at which point you're cutting off? That's what that's where my curiosity is, and that's one of the questions that we're going to be posting with our EAA, IMC forums. If anybody has solid criteria in any area that they would say, for example, some people say, and including myself, if temperature at my planned altitude is within plus 2 Celsius and minus whatever on the negative side, I'm not going. So anything less than plus 2 Celsius. And there is visible moisture.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that's because of icing, of course.
Yeah. And period. I'm not going regardless whether it's forecast, known ice, or everybody saying that there is no ice, or if there is no airmet, no sigmet. It's simply if there is potential of ice, I'm not going. And the reason is very simple, because I pushed that envelope way too much in the past. And I got to the point that I said, okay, that's way too much. I simply don't want to be there when there is any potential of ice. So that is one of my solid things. For example, if I would have frost on the wing, I'm not going until it's cleared from entire wing. Some people say 8 inches from the leading edge. Some people say 12. Some people say 20.
Oh, you're talking about getting out there with a credit card.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So you do the whole thing. Yeah, good point. Good point.
As a dispatcher, I saw some people with some, just that little bit of that frost. And we said what we said, whatever you can say, at the FBO, and it's like, whoa. Yeah, that would be a no-brainer.
So for me, for example, maximum gross weight, it has to be up to the pound. If it's over even by half a pound, I have to remove something from the airplane, because otherwise I'm not going, period.
Would you even trust maximum gross? I mean, that's maximum gross of a brand new airplane.
Yeah, actually I try to stay away by, good 20 pounds from it, but
you have to build in a safety factor.
Yeah, but if I had a brand new airplane, and if it was loaded and by just half a pound over, I would refuse to go.
Right, and it's 59 degrees and 29.92. It's a perfectly standard clear day.
Yeah,
but still, yeah. And what about if you have one of those nights that we all have, guys? You kind of tossed and turned all night. There was one day I was going to go up as a new pilot, and I was heady. I said, no, I'm not flying today. I wasn't that tired, but I said, geez, once you get in the plane, you have to really focus. I knew that I'm not going to be all there, and I just had one of those nights where I kind of tossed all night. Felt okay. I called my friend and said, no, we're not going up. We're not going up today.
I think, how solid that criteria could be. That's a good point. Because this one, I think it's most fluid, most gray.
Right, that's right. Yeah. I mean, things like crosswind components or temperatures, those are you can have an exact number. Radek, I don't know that many people have a specific black and white no go.
Guys, it depends. And I'm going to tell you, Radek, I have an old airplane. And I've got a tricked out airplane. I've got a Cherokee with a constant speed prop, and I have to add weight in the rear to keep my my CG appropriate. And I am not going to play with weight and balance. So you brought up a very good point. In my airplane, I know that my useful load isn't quite what it should be or could be, and I'm not going to risk it. But that's me. So I don't know what to tell you. But that's me.
But
I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people flying over gross, and I've seen people flying with, totally out of balance because they simply don't understand the concept of the envelope, and they think that, okay, if they are below maximum gross weight, then they are good, when in fact they could be totally outside of the envelope. But any airplane has built in some margins.
Yeah.
Oh, they absolutely.
And the argument is against what I'm saying, that, if maximum gross weight is 2,400, let's say, so is it going to fly when it's 2,401?
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will.
We all know that.
So now, at which point we are going to cut this off? My argument is that no, the reason it's there is to leave you healthy margin, and it's like a speed limit, you know. When I see speed limit, I try to go within speed limit. Some people say, okay, you can go 5 over, you can go 7 over. Well, you can go 10 over, you can see maybe you're not going to get a ticket. But then 11, you may, you know, encounter some cop that is going to give you a ticket for 6 miles over. So we never know. So why enter this unknown, especially in aviation, when we have a norm and we have known criteria that we can go by? Yeah, and I have encountered some serious, you know, problems with flight school management and you know, at some other supervisors in my career that, you know, and I was refusing flights and somebody else would take it, they would go and they would come back with no problems, with wings frosted, with, you know, over gross weight and a lot of things, and it did work. My argument still was, I don't really care.
You can't screw that up even once.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny talking about weight. Like what Howie said, you said you have to put some weight in the tail. To me, the CG is even more critical, I think, than the gross weight, because you know, I think that talk about affecting your control, your stall, your recovery. You know, if you have like if you have an aft CG or a forward, then that's real control stuff, isn't it? I mean, you know. But anyway, Radek, I would think you've seen as an instructor too, at flight school. You you only have one VOR. But, you know, that's okay. Or the VSI is not really working, or you know, you could legally fly in some cases, but equipment, that's a whole nother issue, huh?
Oh yeah, in every single area we can address this go and no go. I've seen people refusing to go because this guy had a full set of, you know, nice gauges plus 530, 430, and his Garmin 430 wasn't working, and he refused to go. You can argue now here, I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, we can fly without any of those.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But that was his criteria. He was basically saying that everything has to work. And it's fine, you know. I think it's fine if that's what he subscribes to. You know, in the area of the weather, that's another one. Thunderstorms, for example.
Oof, yeah.
We would say that we're not going. If they are what?
Well, I wonder how. I'd like to take a poll. This would really be interesting. You know, the more I fly, the less I fly. Has become a mantra. I personally don't fly for a living, and I haven't put myself in very many situations where it was a desperate need to go. I know we're all different, and I'm sure, you know, there are people who are listening going, oh, what are you talking about? You know, you get somewhere, and then you got to come back, and then you're going to push the envelope. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I do. I get it. It's one of those really hard decisions, but the more I fly, the less I fly. The more I understand the risk, the more I don't want to put myself into a risky situation. So that's a great question, Rad.
Yeah, I mean, hey, geez, guys, just imagine when, like, you know, medics, I mean, helicopter pilots are, you know, where you're actually going in to get someone that's actually life and death. If you don't get them off the mountain now, if you don't get them, talk about go, no go stuff. That takes it to another level, huh?
And they do have to make those decisions, you know. Many times they don't go, and I cannot imagine the stress that you are under to make those decisions.
Yeah. And interesting stuff. Wow. Go, no go. Oh, the big one.
Well, I think this would be a major topic for the IMC program, and scenarios where, you know, we're put into those gray areas where either conditions degrade, equipment starts to break down, or conditions are just on those borderlines. And, you know, we are all very different people. I'm going to tell you, watching Sean Tucker hang it on a prop at Oshkosh a few years ago when there was a microburst right on the field, in the middle of his performance, you're looking at this guy in this airplane that's just hanging it on the prop at about 300 feet, and tents are being blown around, and people's, clothing are flying off of women, and cars are being pushed down the road, and it's just ridiculous. And this guy he just kept it up there, and it was just like amazing. And you couldn't even hear the guy over the PA until it was over, and then he landed, and then afterwards they went over and they're talking to him, and I ran over to the announcer booth to why did you do that? I mean, there's a microburst. I mean, Lord knows what that was. And he said, "I'm safer up here. I know the performance of this machine, and I know that I could pull myself out of anything." He knew his machine.
Yeah, nobody knows it that well. I mean, you can't. Granted, he's the top of his field.
It's Sean Tucker.
Yeah, but it's a microburst. It's physics, simple physics.
But I think that brings another thing.
Sean,
here.
don't get on my case.
It's another factor in this whole thing is, I think, who potentially are you going to kill?
Right. Yeah, right.
Because it's all risk management. So you take the risk and you know what potentially could happen. So, for example,
right.
Sean Tucker, he's taking great risks, and that's his choice.
Right, yeah.
And when he's hanging there over the field, he puts himself at risk.
And just himself.
Yes.
Just him. Yeah, just him.
So I cannot imagine him taking his family on board and doing the same thing.
Right. Very good point.
Good point. Well, that is a good point. Yeah.
And
also, him doing it over large crowds when he would endanger somebody on the ground, when a lot of times we don't think in those aspects.
Yeah, look at some Blue Angels Thunderbird accidents in the past. People have died on the ground.
Yeah.
But that's.
But again, that's who you can argue here that those crowds, they know potentially.
Right. Yeah.
That they are there near.
Well, wait a minute.
Danger.
Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah. There's inherent risk in motorsports. I was in motorcycling and auto racing for years, and I wasn't a professional racer. I was amateur, and I went around the track a couple of times myself. But even when you get a ticket for a race, the stipulation when you purchase that ticket, you remove responsibility from the racetrack.
All liability, I'll bet.
All liability.
Yeah.
So, and we've seen even recently where tires come off of auto racing, circle tracks, and they go into the crowd. There's inherent risk in everything in life, and you're going to make those decisions. And we who fly, accept that risk. Now, good point. If it's me alone or with my daughter, with my family. And I'm going to tell you, when I first started flying, my wife would not fly with me, even though she was very good friends with my flight instructor. But she said she didn't want the president and vice president in the same plane. She didn't want the risk of both of us getting into trouble at the same time.
I know families that fly that commercially the husband and wife won't take the same flight because they got kids.
Well, and her philosophy was not until they're both out of college. And sure enough, my daughter graduated, and now she flies with me.
Oh, okay. Radek's still waiting.
Radek's thinking of a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, very good. Anything else on the agenda, you guys?
No. Wow, that's.
I think we could talk for another 2 hours about this, but I think that may be too much.
Yeah, I'm gonna go sign into the forums right now.
That would be a great thing. I'm going to ask everybody who's listening to this, please do us a favor. Sign into the forum and chime in about your thoughts. We're actually going to start a discussion there about the radio program, and like to hear your thoughts. I would very much like, whether it be personality, subject, content, how often you want to hear from us. What do you think are pertinent issues, things like that. For example, I never got a chance to talk about this DYI ADSB. Have you guys heard about it? I'm just going to drop this on you. Have you heard about the Stratux, guys?
The who? What?
You know Stratus, right? We all know about Stratus.
I know Stratus, yeah.
But there's a device called a Stratux, STRATUX, and it's a DIY, do-it-yourself ADSB computer that you can rig up for about $60. And I just want to tell you that I didn't pull this out of thin air. It's in this month's Aviation Consumer magazine, and so I'm going to hand this off to my son, who's a computer whiz. Anyway, we'll talk more about that and other things in the days to come. So, in the meantime, is there anything else you want to say? Any shout-outs? Oh, yeah, I got one. Hey, Derek. Derek. Earth to Derek. We'll talk more about that later.
Okay.
Anybody else?
No, that's it. Actually, I kind of got to run. I got something I got to take care of. I didn't think we'd be. We've been on for a little while. It's been good. Yeah, we can just keep going. You lose track of time.
Radic, anything else to chime in?
There is, like you said, there's a lot to be talk about. So I guess next time we will have more interesting topics, and keep watching what is showing up on our EAIMC Club forums.
Excellent. Well, on behalf of John Roberts and Radic Widzikowski.
Something like that, yeah.
I'm Howie Marlin, and I wish you all safe travels, and everybody be well. Okay,
Fly
from
safe.
the golden microphones of IMC Radio. Goodbye, you guys.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
We're all alone, try to hone, and we're feeling like it's all been done.